It's The Loan Show on KSRO with George Adair. Call in with your questions now at 636-1350.
And good afternoon. Hey, I'm George Adair. Hey, this is The Loan Show. Thanks for tuning in. We do this every Wednesday at 12:30. And we've got a really good show today. I'm excited to be joined in the studio with, of course, my co-host of late, Tim Carroll. And we're also joined by Darrin Jenkins. He is the new city manager for Rohnert Park. So we're going to get into some nice conversations with him about what's happening in that flourishing, booming community in Rohnert Park. So we'll be joined by him in just a few minutes. But hey, there's a lot going on in the world right now, a lot going on in the news. We try to hone in some of those topics to make them relevant to your biggest asset and liability. That would be your house and the mortgage you have on your house, right? So that's what this is, The Loan Show. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the current news events. Hey, Michelle, how's it going?
Hi, it's going really well.
I think we're both feeling better this week.
Yes. Last week was sort of meh.
Yeah, actually, Tim, I'm good this week. I don't need you. You can go ahead.
Great. I drove all the way up here from Rohnert Park.
I'll just turn his microphone off
Okay.
here.
Yes, that's great. No, again, we're going to have Tim Carroll talking with us in just a minute about rates, and then Tim is the one who was helpful in arranging for our discussion today with Darrin Jenkins, so he'll be leading the conversation then. There's some interesting news. You know, for so many years we talked about how distressed sales, which were also known as short sales, or an REO. So these are where you may owe more than your house is worth, or maybe you lost a house to foreclosure. Now the bank is selling that house, so other buyers are clamoring for that opportunity. Well, that opportunity has really diminished over the last several months. It's actually virtually evaporated. According to the California Association of Realtors, more than 2/3 of homes in over 5 years ago were short sales and REOs. So, that was a big part of the marketplace. In fact, we developed a new term during that period called an equity sale, which was actually just a normal sale.
Okay.
And now, today, that accounts for only about 15.5% of the market. So what we've always talked in this show about is how do we get back to a normalized marketplace? And today we're starting to see normalized behavior in the marketplace, and people are now buying and selling real estate instead of banks selling real estate. And that's a healthy thing for us. What is also healthy is good mortgage rates. I've got Tim in the studio here with me today. We're going to talk a little bit here, Tim. It's been a rough couple of weeks. I think the confusion in the Ukraine and then some mixed bag of news in the U.S. has really created this dichotomy in mortgage rates.
It really has. But at the end of the day, George, rates are still roughly where they have been. I mean, all this news back and forth, up and down, sideways and backwards, but we always seem to land about 1/8% on either side. Yeah. So today, give you real quickly, rates today on the 30-year fixed, 4.5%. Again, as I always qualify, based on your overall credit and other qualifying factors.
Yeah.
That puts us to about 4.63 APR.
Right.
Okay. Now, the 15-year fixed, again, I'm a huge fan of the 15-year fixed. Today, about 3.5%. APR about 3.7%.
I met with a friend of mine from high school. He may be listening. If he is, hello, you know who you are. But due to confidentiality laws, I won't say your name. We're sitting in my office. He says, yep, you're always trying to push that 15-year fixed loan, aren't you? And I said, yeah, well, let's talk about that. And, it wasn't the right payment for him. But, gosh, we looked at the interest savings on the loan that he was looking at, and it was about a $200,000 savings in interest by going to the 15-year.
Yeah, and that's not an exaggeration. I think I mentioned on the show a couple of weeks ago, we've run into that consistently. And if it's not $200,000, it's $100,000 or $80,000 or $130,000. So if you're thinking of a 15-year term, if you'd like to pay your house off quicker, if you love the idea of a rate in the 3%, 3.5% range, think about a 15-year term.
Yeah, it's a good strategy if it fits your budget. Finally, I want to talk about you can't have a mortgage show on the radio and not talk about this potential new legislation that's moving through Congress. It's not moving through Congress yet. It's being turned into it's being proposed at this point. And that's how do you get rid of government's control of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, or how do you consolidate them, or how do you privatize them? And so right now, Fannie and Freddie are really in control of the mortgage market. They buy a majority of all mortgages in what we call the secondary market. So whether you get your loan with Wells Fargo, Citi, Chase, or where we work at Bay Equity Home Loans, down on the corner of 4th and E, call us at 583-8100. How did I do on that?
Pretty good, but don't forget about Rohnert Park, folks, 999-2726.
All right, yeah, anyway, so back on task here. It doesn't matter who you get your loan from. Statistically, a majority of those loans go to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. That's partially why interest rates are where they're at. There's this government involvement in controlling the marketplace in order to make housing affordable. Well, now they're talking about how do we get government out of the banking business? Because if you look at the numbers, we've actually been in the banking business. According to a recent report here, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac could return $179 billion in profits to taxpayers over the next 10 years. So we're actually in the money-making business. Well, it's not supposed to be the way this was just to stabilize the economy, not turn us into a socialist state. And that's kind of what's we have to be careful of when you have Fannie and Freddie buying most of the mortgages and the government profiting from it, right? So that's what we have to be wary of.
Without a doubt. And, I don't know. It's a very complex subject, and I don't know how deeply we want to get into it. But
I did just say socialism, right?
Well, you did just say socialism. Fannie and Freddie, I think, are doing a phenomenal job. It's the whole conservatorship that's got everybody scratching their head. And so it'll be interesting to see how this plays out.
It will. Well, let's segue over. I don't mean to use socialism and Rohnert Park in the same sentence. Sorry about that. But what a segue, huh? Anyways, let's talk about a free market, capitalistic, booming local marketplace of Rohnert Park.
Rohnert Park. And again, you guys all know, or most of your listeners know, that's where our new office is. I'm the branch manager there. And I have a very special guest that I brought up with me today. Darrin Jenkins, who is the city manager of Rohnert Park, has been kind enough to come into the show today and give us his perspective. We've talked a lot about what we're seeing in Rohnert Park, but we thought we'd go right to the source. So, Darrin, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here.
Great. Now, Darrin, I understand you're pretty new as the manager, about 3 to 4 months.
That's right.
But you have some pretty deep perspective on Rohnert Park. You've been there about a decade now, correct?
Yeah, with the city organization and living there as well.
Tell me some of the roles that you've played in the city.
So I started my career as a civil engineer, and I like to say I was building dams and bridges early on, and now I'm building community and an organization.
Yeah.
And I came to Rohnert Park as an engineer and then worked in public works and development.
Great. So how's your first 3 or 4 months of your regime?
Well, I tell people it's very exciting.
And you say that with such enthusiasm.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you get to do things like radio shows.
Oh, yeah, this is probably the highlight so far.
Well, Darrin, a couple of things. We talked off the air, and one of the terms that I've tried to coin is Destination Rohnert Park. And, my feeling is that having lived in Sonoma County for many, many years is that Rohnert Park, for a lot of us, was just a pass-through little city, and it wasn't a destination. But that seems to be changing, and I want to get your take on that. How is it changing, and am I perceiving this correctly?
No, that's right. I grew up in Santa Rosa and made the move to Rohnert Park, and it's a great place to raise a family, and I do that with mine there. We have some added amenities in Rohnert Park. We have the Green Music Center, world-class venue for concerts, and then we have the Great Resort and Casino, and that is definitely bringing people to Rohnert Park.
And my money. I lost a couple $100 there the other night. I keep telling people I'm not going to go to the casino anymore, but the restaurants are great, and that's how we ended up there. And I lost a few $100 at the blackjack table. You know anybody over there I can talk to?
Yeah. Well, definitely, speaking of workers over at the casino, they're looking for services in Rohnert Park. We hear the dentists and the doctors are busy. They're looking for places to live. The rental market is hot, and it's a good time to invest in Rohnert Park.
Good. Now, couple of things. We've talked a lot about the casino, and I don't know if people are getting sick of the casino, but the casino has, in my mind's eye, was a very critical component in the growth that's beginning to happen in Rohnert Park. Can you talk to me about that? I think the sewer hookup or something was related to that.
Yeah, absolutely. They've been a good neighbor to Rohnert Park, and we provide services to them, and they pay us for those services. And one of those was about $13 million invested into our sewer system, and we're using that to build a sewer pipe across the city to the east side of Rohnert Park, and it's freeing up big developments on the east side of Rohnert Park: Sonoma Mountain Village, Southeast Pacific Plan, University District.
Now, if I've done my math right, correct me if I'm wrong, and these are rough figures, we've got about 4,300 residential units already approved. and then maybe another 1,700 on behind those.
Yeah, that's right. They're not all going to happen in 1 year. They're going to be paced out over time, but it is an exciting opportunity in Rohnert Park. We haven't had a new house, really subdivision built for 17 years, so we're really excited to see that grading work going on right now.
Good, excellent.
Now, there's maybe you want to talk about. There's a committee meeting tomorrow night. You want to tell us about that?
Yeah, so our planning commission is considering a big development project that's right across the street from Sonoma State University and the Green Music Center, and it incorporates commercial to support the Green Music Center, and it's going to have new homes for residents in Rohnert Park. Very exciting.
It's pretty exciting. You've got the casino that came in, but there's other businesses that are starting to move into Rohnert Park, right? And Bay Equity Home Loans, has been one of those businesses. We've recently opened up a space right in the center of town, right?
Yeah, we have a great location.
What I'm interested to know, and when we come back to the next segment, is what kind of community development is going on to continue to spawn small business growth in Rohnert Park. So I'd like you to think about that. Folks, we're going to continue our conversation with Darrin Jenkins. He's the city manager of Rohnert Park. But in the meantime, hey, do you wish you could own a home again without having to wait 3 to 7 years to qualify? Maybe you want to buy something in Rohnert Park. There's a lot of great houses in Rohnert Park. If so, call Bay Equity Home Loans. We're offering home loans to qualifying borrowers who experienced a foreclosure, short sale, or bankruptcy just 12 months ago. Give us a call at 999-2727, 999-2727. I'm George Adair with Tim Carroll, Darrin Jenkins. This is The Loan Show. Stick around.
To find out more about Bay Equity Home Loans, call George Adair at 707-583-8100. That's 707-583-8100.
1350 KSRO, the station Sonoma County depends on for breaking news and compelling talk. Now talks the issues weeknights 6 to 9 with the Jerry Doyle Show.
Let me ask you a question. Did you get a second mortgage or a home equity line of credit before the mortgage meltdown? If so, you might be in for a big shock because many of these loans have balloon payments or scheduled payment increases after the first 10 years. Now, I don't know about you, but the last thing I want to deal with is a higher house payment or an unexpected balloon payment. To find out if and when your loan payment is going to increase or if you have a balloon payment, call the mortgage experts at Bay Equity Home Loans right now. My friends at Bay Equity Home Loans specialize in helping people just like you replace equity lines of credit before they become a problem. Call Bay Equity Home Loans now with 3 offices in Santa Rosa, Rohnert Park, and Petaluma. 707-583-8100, 583-8100, or go to bayequityloans.com.
Equal housing lender, subject to credit approval. NMLS ID 76988. The transaction will be made pursuant to California Finance Lender Law and or California Residential Mortgage Lending Act under the Department of Business Oversight.
This is Michael O'Shea, president of the Sonoma Media Group. This message is for business owners and managers, anyone who's responsible for the growth and success of a business that depends on customers. The media landscape is cluttered and sometimes confusing. Reaching new customers or prospects is challenging. Navigating through the noise is what we do for a living, and the Sonoma Media Group counts hundreds of local businesses as our partners in putting buyers and sellers together. We have just recently put the finishing touches on a remarkable new website full of local market information on radio, newspaper, cable TV, direct mail, and other ways to reach your target customer. This is not a sales pitch for our radio stations. Rather, our new marketing and advertising site is a true resource and an educational platform for you to browse with no pressure to learn the various ways you can add new customers and help in building your business. It's a simple address, SonomaMediaGroup.com. SonomaMediaGroup.com. We're locally owned and operated and a proud member of the Go Local Cooperative. SonomaMediaGroup.com.
Calling all cheese lovers.
It's time for cheese.
Always.
California's 8th Annual Artisan Cheese Festival is March 21st through the 23rd at the Sheraton in Petaluma. 3 days of scrumptious cheeses, chef pairings, cheese seminars with cheesemakers and cheese experts.
Friday night is the Meet the Cheesemakers reception and tasting. More than 24 cheesemakers sampling artisan cheeses plus wine, beer tastings, and a spectacular fantasy cheese table to indulge.